I just have to make sure that it is muted before we start.
Yep.
Okay. That's it. Now I'm going to give it back to you. Just want to make sure that our friends are coming in. Ashley's in. It's all good. Fantastic. Okay. I see not joined one more person. Angie's in. Yay. Hi, Angie. It's been a while. All right, we like to start on time and we're a minute off, so let's get started. Hi, everyone. We are so glad that you are here today to join us for our final of the year cottage meeting for our online cottage meetings. And we're going to talk about virtue and the valor of virtue today. And I'm really excited. I was kind of dragging this morning and then I started listening to it and I listened to it 3 times to be prepared. And I am really excited for this one. And I don't know if it ever happens to you where you listen to something and you feel like it was made for you at this exact moment, but that's how this one felt. So I'm excited to have you guys here. So we always start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a prayer. Would anybody like to volunteer the prayer? Going once, going twice.
Yeah.
Perfect. Great. Go ahead. You can start us with the prayer.
Were you meeting me, Carrie? Was I the one
Yes,
that?
yes, yes, Angie. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Father in heaven, we're grateful to be gathered tonight, grateful for this little group that we have and for the strength we get from it. Grateful for Carrie and for her taking the time to have this great discussion with us and teach us about things that we may not be aware of and how we can be more knowledgeable and strengthened in our convictions about this great country. Grateful for each other and pray for strength for our families and for our health and pray that we may have the Spirit with us. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. So let me just share my screen and then we can say the pledge. Um, Excuse me for all of my crazy going on here. All right. I pledge allegiance to the
To
flag
the flag of the
of the
United
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, you guys, this one was pretty cool. This is the value of virtue. Um, and one of the first things that we were learning about when we're talking about the value of virtue and what virtue even is, it comes down to character. So we were talking about George Washington and we were talking about Benedict Arnold, two people who started off very well, but one had character and one did not. And we find that a lot in our politics. Let me just move this over. So I'm getting a little bit better at making my. Can you see this, Jean? Can you read this? Because I'm the photos on top are in front of it. The screen is.
Yeah, it says the only foundation of a free constitution is pure virtue. If this cannot be inspired into our people in a greater measure than they have it now, they may change their rules and their forms of government, but they will not obtain a lasting liberty. John Adams.
And you guys, I feel like this was a really powerful thing to discuss today because we are continuously electing people that don't necessarily have virtue. And we also have this kind of false virtue going on in society and in Utah. Let's just be honest. So here's the definition of virtue. Would anybody like to read that? You can just take your, yeah, anybody can take their screen off. I can't see it and share at the same time.
I'll read it
Okay.
again. Says virtue, moral excellence, goodness, righteousness, conformity of one's life and conduct to a moral and ethical principles, uprightness, rectitude, particular moral excellence, a good or admirable quality or property, the virtue of knowing one's weaknesses, effective force, power, or potency. Love that.
So virtue isn't what we do, it's why we do it. And so the first thing that I wanted to tell you guys is that Reed and I just recently, and I think Corinne might be here too, we all got the opportunity to go to Chicago and to meet with a bunch of advocates, a bunch of warriors. And one of the most powerful things that I took away was the very final thing that we heard, which is when she said, "You are not here because you're influencers. You are not people who want to be influencers. You are not people who need that sort of power. That's not why you do what you do." And so, what I wanted to do today is to talk about why we do what we do. Again, I'm having a hard time because of where my screen is. Why we do what we do is strength of character. Um, 9 civilizations have died from within, not from without. Can you think of any of those civilizations? Like civilizations that have fallen,
Well, from the picture, I see Romans.
right? Do you know what happened there?
I don't really remember actually.
Well, in a nutshell, there were a lot of things that were going on, but in a nutshell, you had bread and circus. You had people who were extremely comfortable, and they fell by pure democracy. They fell by everybody having, supposed equal rights. And really, I would say they fell because society turned to a place of making decisions based on feelings rather than having selected people think and know and also think about the future. They were only thinking about themselves in those moments right then. Um, One of the big things that happened was that if people were truth tellers, they didn't like to hear it. And so if they did hear it, they didn't like what they heard, they would poison people to death. So, and this has happened over and over again in civilizations. It's always a matter, it's that whole uh, weak men make hard times make strong men. I'm missing the third one. Sorry, but it's that when we are extremely comfortable, we kind of stop caring. Another way to put it is we might become apathetic. I don't know if this is sounding very familiar to you. Okay, so in listening to Kimberly's video, if any of you guys did, Kimberly, she talked about the salt of the earth. First, she talked about virtue, and the story that she told was, and I felt a little bit convicted because this actually happened to me recently, and I did not do the same thing because I couldn't find the receipt. But then I heard what she did, and I realized, okay, I could do this. She went into the grocery store and she bought something, and then when she got to the car, she realized there was something under her purse. And she thought, I've got to return this. But she looked at her clock and she realized that if she did, she'd be late in picking up her child, right? So she put it on her calendar that she was going to return it. For me, I still have the pens that I accidentally have. They're still in the bag, but there's no receipt for them because they didn't get written up. But then what she said is she just went in and she just pulled the thing in and told them that charged me for this, but I'm not taking it home. And the clerk leaned in and said, nobody's going to know. you can just do whatever you want to. I mean, like, nobody's going to know. It's no big deal. It's been a couple of days, whatever else. But she said, I would know. And that's the big thing is, do we do the right thing? You know, like the tree falls in the forest. Do we do the right thing even when nobody would know or even care? And are we doing what are we doing the right thing for? So this one, the salt of the earth, I see those t-shirts everywhere that say stay salty. And I'm like, oh, that gives me permission to be a little bit sassy. But when she talks about it, she says, um, the the salt of the earth, what if we thought about it as the preservative that it is? And then we think, what is it that we're trying to preserve? So that's my first question for you all tonight is what is it that we're trying to preserve? Why does the work of Moms for America, or why does the work of motherhood, or why does the work of mentoring matter? I am not moving until go ahead.
Can I talk? Are you asking for people to say something?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay. I'm driving to pick my son up, so sorry I'm in the dark. You probably can't see me. But why does this matter? Like, it has become my heart and soul. Today, I took my class to Valley Forge, and we went barefoot and we wrapped our feet in rags. And then we tried to build a fire, and we marched, and we discussed how, they started with 12,000 men, and then there were 6,000, and 1,100 had deserted over to the British, and some had died. And when the man came over, von Steuben, the Prussian general, who wasn't really a baron nor a general, when he came and he saw their destitute circumstance, one of the things about the men was that they were patient, and they didn't want to mutiny because of their love for and respect for Washington, who had taught them to love and respect their God, their freedom, and their country. And he had exemplified that so much. Even his mother, Mary, when he won at crossing the Delaware, all her friends were like, oh, your son's so awesome. Everybody's saying he's the savior. And she said, I've taught him better than that. He knows he has to respect his God. And so, like, my passion to teach the children, their love of country is synonymous with their love of freedom, is synonymous with their love of God, because it's all truly the same thing. We can't worship God without a country that grants us the freedom to do so. And, talking to them and seeing their hungry eyes and the rapt attention, that their spirits recognize this and that they want this, is so humbling to me. And I love that I get to be a part of this, and I get to be a part of that chain, the link in the chain that helps people connect with these divine virtues and values that are our American culture. It's what it's based upon. Sorry, I just gave a speech, but
No, it's perfect. That's
wow.
exactly. Does anybody else have any thoughts as well? What is it that you're trying to preserve?
Well, I'll talk. The thing that attracted me to Moms for America was the mission of um, liberty, promoting liberty. So that's what I'm trying to preserve, because as I get older and learn more, I see the government overreach, especially in like the last, 10 years. So when I look at laws or, politicians or whatever, I think, is this going to make us more or less free? Because I believe that, why we're here is to learn to govern ourselves, and the ability to govern ourselves is a gift from God, that there have been millions, billions of people that have lived on the earth that have not had that gift. And so I believe we have a moral obligation to preserve our liberty that was God given to us.
I love that. I love that. And we're going to go into like what Libra means um, in a moment. But does anybody else have any? Megan, do you have something?
Yeah, what she said just made me think it kind of ties back to virtue. If we are a virtuous people, then we will be able to govern ourselves. But if we aren't, I mean, we really can't be trusted. Like that really
Right.
goes hand in hand. If we want to be a master of ourselves, if we want to be a truly free people, we have to learn how to, um, master ourselves. And that means we have to be virtuous. We have to have that integrity that our actions follow even when no one's watching.
Right. I think the next one actually might be that. Well, what makes an individual virtuous?
I wish you could go back to that slide, because I just thought that definition was so good.
This one?
Yeah, so moral excellence, goodness, righteousness. And I don't think this necessarily has to be a perfect someone who's perfect, because it says the virtue of knowing one's weaknesses. But I think striving for these things, striving for moral excellence, for goodness and righteousness, like we all are going to fall short. But if this is our goal, moral excellence, goodness, righteousness, um, uprightness, then I think that that's what makes someone virtuous.
One of the things I was thinking about, and why, I mean, I chose this picture because I just think that verse that I constantly think about with only what is helpful for building others up. Like if you're constantly thinking, if your mission is, how can I build others? How can I lift up people, of every age? What can I do to be of service? Um, and I think the important part is without glory. And we'll get into that when we start talking about the difference between a politician and a statesman. Uh, in this thing, it just, that image, even though it's men, I was looking for a female version, but even though it's men that they're lifting each other up is just something that I think is a virtuous thing. And to do the right thing, even when and especially when it's hard. I was talking to my pastor yesterday, and he was talking. He said that there was a guy in India, and he said only in America do we think that we can have our convictions in comfort, that we deserve to have them in comfort. In other countries, he said that his friend was saying, "Oh, I got a beating the other day, and it was a good beating." And the reason that he said it was a good beating, and he was proud, he was glad that it was a good beating, because whenever there's a good beating, blessings come. And this idea that we shouldn't have to have any risk in doing what's right. It should just be comfortable. It should just be easy. Um, Virtue is knowing that there's that risk, I think. But that's and the other
Life
thing
is
that
not supposed to be easy. Like how you don't grow, you don't
yeah,
grow if you don't have something to overcome. It gives us
right.
purpose.
And that becomes a tricky situation, because there are a lot of people who feel that there should be no suffering in life, and
That's biblical right there, Carrie. We're supposed to. We
that
should
there should
expect
be
it.
no suffering. Oh,
I believe until the end we expect it.
Right.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I just wanted to say real quick that, and I'm sure, I think I've shared this before, but one of my favorite verses in Acts is talking about the apostles, when they're all put to death all the ways, but they considered it an honor to suffer shame for being followers of Christ. And I think that
Yes.
that's what we have to expect, that if we're doing what's right, the world is going to come after us because the world crucified a perfect man. So who are we to think that we can get through this life without some persecution, without some suffering?
Right. And I just want to say that whatever, I don't even know which, I think this is probably Paul, but whoever it is, I just picked up the picture because I was making a slideshow. It has nothing to do with, I don't know what religion or where this is coming from. I just thought that it was a virtuous person who was probably a martyr. And so, and I think that, being willing to be a martyr, being willing to lay down our lives for a cause that is much bigger than ourselves is um is something that makes you virtuous, I think. Okay, I'm moving on. So here's the one, Megan, that you were saying. If we aren't virtuous, then we need more laws because a, a people who are not moral, a people who aren't held together by the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence, well, we see that. We see people who have they don't care about a person's private property. They don't even care about another person's life. Um, and we see a lot of that because we have decided to, not all of us, but much of society has decided to adopt moral relativism.
So, Carrie,
Yeah, go ahead.
this one really bothers me. I know it's true, but even as you make more laws, people still don't keep them.
Mm-mm.
It's as the majority slowly dwindles, there are less and less people trying to enforce those laws and even not caring.
Right.
So, it's going towards more and less government at the same time. More
Yes.
government meaning laws, and less government meaning people don't even care if you follow them. And
Well,
so if you don't have self-government, you have almost tyrannical anarchy.
no,
So
I think that that's perfect, but we also have a bunch of people who believe that once they have infantilized society, they're the ones who should run society. So we're not virtuous, meaning we don't have self virtue. We can't self govern because we don't even know what's right and wrong anymore because in moral relativism, everything's thrown out the window. So we don't have, and think about this. I've said this before, but think about in Utah, down in Salt Lake, there's a sign, a big sculpture thing with a bunch of different signs, and none of it, it's all like pointing to the left, pointing to the right, pointing up, pointing down. This matters, that matters, all over the place, right? To me, maybe this isn't the intention, but what it looks like to me is a big giant worshiping of moral relativism. Nothing really matters. Nothing is solid. There's no such thing as truth. And then you have a whole bunch of people who lean into government, take care of me. So if we aren't virtuous, I would say that we're not maybe spiritually mature. If we're not spiritually mature, then we become more like an infant. If we're more like an infant, we have to have someone take care of us. And we should be very careful about who we decide should care for us. Did somebody have something? I heard a thought. Anybody feel free to talk, even if you're like not a regular, feel free.
Well, I just what you said, just a few, basically this idea that's out in society now that you have a truth and I have a truth is just absurd. There is a truth. We know that God is the source of all truth. And I think Satan's plan is to make us think that we can make our own rules and be happy instead of following Christ and following God and doing what he has told us will give us joy in this life and save our souls. So I think that anything that directs us to follow ourselves is, is leading us astray, because Christ is who we should be following, you know.
Yeah. So we have an issue with false virtue. And I could have chosen more specific pictures, but I didn't. So, um, and false virtue is when somebody else tells us, if we were to go back to that one on virtue and imagine that as all falsehood. So somebody else determines, a human being determines for us what moral excellence is, what goodness is, what righteousness is. Um, Conformity, that's a great one. Conformity of one's life or conduct to moral and ethical principles that defined by another human being, because that's what we're looking at. We have a massive problem with people who want extreme authoritarianism. And by that, I mean things like the dignity index, or false virtue of just saying, we know what's right. And now you need to adopt these ideas, whether you've believed them or not, because we're enlightened. And so false virtue, well, it can destroy societies.
And
So I wrap them up. Go ahead.
So the funniest thing that I love is Aaron Bolin posting like Jesus against the dignity index, and like it's
true.
so funny. Jesus is scoring really low against this dignity index, and it just kind of goes to show that man-made laws, this, and I don't even know if it's called a moral relativism. It's more of a, whoever's in charge or has the megaphone relativism.
Yeah.
It just doesn't stack up. It's gonna fall. It's not backed by wisdom. It's not backed by the ability to even persist. Like it doesn't have the essence of human nature and the aspirations and desires of our hearts embedded within it. But the Bible type teachings do, because that is what our soul is created from. And so they're fabricating all of these indices to measure, are we doing good? Are we okay? And we've lost the basic way to measure, what is good. And so anyway, oh, there we go. Mweg.
I mean, so here's the thing. Like, I love that you use the word fabricated, because these are fabricated emotions that people don't even believe in. Because at the same time that they're saying we need to be compassionate, we need to care for the poor, we need to be about these social issues, they're taking in loads of money for their agenda. So,
Carrie, can I step in and
yes,
just define terms for a second?
yeah, go ahead.
So the moral relativism, that's
Yes.
saying that our morals and principles are determined by our society and culture. So there is nothing universal. That's
Okay.
basically decaying culture. That's kind of where we are. Then there's moral subjectivism. That is when morality is based on your personal beliefs and feelings. Then
Okay.
there's humanism, which we're headed there. That's where the morality is grounded in human reasoning and empathy. And
Okay.
it's all about well-being. So it's about the well-being of the humans. And that's where human rights come in. So as far as ethics go, that is where we use reasoning, human reasoning, and that takes anything divine completely out of the equation.
So are you saying ethical, you're not saying that ethical people are not, you can not be like if you're ethical that you're not
So
religious or you're not
I'm
Christian.
saying that it's a slope, right? It's a
Okay.
slope towards humanism. Okay.
Okay.
So okay, so our self-government that we're talking about is completely the opposite. If with self-government, you recognize that that us governing ourselves is because we are under God. Therefore, our laws and our obedience is
Right.
serving God first.
Yes. And
And that is where our
yeah,
freedom comes from.
right.
That is where our obedience and our goodness comes from. So there is no virtue without God. If there's virtue, if you separate that from God, from made in his image, then you are already heading towards moral subjectivism. Then you slide down towards humanism because through philosophy, you're heading down to taking God completely out of it.
Exactly.
So,
Yes.
okay, so self-government is God ruling internally from the heart of the believer. In order for us to have true liberty, we must willingly submit and voluntarily be governed internally by the Spirit of the Word of God, rather than external forces. Government is first internal and then it extends outward. Freedom starts
Right.
inside, which is why Christ wants our hearts. So the freedom we have, our agency and our free will is us having the ability to choose and to make those choices, right?
Yeah.
So when we are free, we like free to sin, basically, right? We're
Right.
free to not sin. So as we get away from that true freedom that is internal, when you're free in Christ, and eventually you lose even the want to sin, that's what we call sanctification. Being made holy, it's a
Right.
process,
And
right?
we
That
will,
constant
right.
struggle. So, but when we take God out of it and we take our freedom out of God given, then we're
Right.
heading towards incorporating our own minds. God's out of it. And we're going to use philosophy to say, well, this is the culture.
Well, and
Well,
that's
this is the
right.
society. And we're decaying down the slope towards humanism, which has no God,
And that's what
which
I would
has,
say this
yeah,
organization really is kind
right.
of pushing towards. I think that's perfect because this organization really is pushing toward it's what society, it's what culture wants.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll use this branding and we'll target.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that's really hard to watch is that we'll target people. So I well, we've got a friend here who made a statement and this statement was perfectly fine. It was just, hey, come and sign the ballot initiative. And the person
Mm-hmm.
decided to say, you know, um, I don't want to, or I actually agree with this, which is fine. You can agree with whatever you want to agree with. The problem is the manipulation. So, and that is what this whole group and why I've got this big poster up here right now is that's what that's about. It's about that manipulation. It's about saying, um, and this was what happens when you don't understand, when you're not an informed citizen. So you see something and they'll say, it hurts my feelings that you would dare say X, but they also say what they think first. So they've manipulated, they've been able to put their point across, and then they say, you can't say something. You have to be silent. And if you aren't kind of rooted in, I'd say rooted in valor, if you're not very strong in truth, you'll go, oh, I'm so sorry. And then you'll self censor. And so that happens to so many people. And then not only do they self-censor, but once they self-censor and they say, I'm so glad that you understood that that hurt my feelings. Maybe I could talk to you more about why it hurt my feelings. And all of a sudden you're invited into all sorts of special conversations that are
So
pulling
that's the
you.
next step down. That's
Yes,
moral subjectivism.
yes. Yes.
which leads to
Okay.
humanism.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that is what happens. And that's why so many people, especially women, and yes, I'll say, especially conservative women, are getting pulled into this. It's intentional. It's by design. I've been to these meetings where they're like, what language can we use to make people believe more of what we want them to believe? In other words, how can we brainwash people? How can we manipulate them? And the
Okay.
reality is, go ahead.
No,
Someone,
no. The
no, okay.
reality is we need to hear the reality first.
Right.
Most conservative women of faith don't vote. They don't want to be involved. That's a
So
fact.
true.
They don't want to be involved. They think they're busy. They're too busy. I can't spend that extra time doing that. Politics are ugly. Politics are hard, and they are. People are jerks. Having ran, I understand that. People are jerks. And also they trust their husbands. It's kind of like in my house, I expect the men to take out the garbage. Maybe that could be applied to politics too. So, my husband just made a comment in the background. Maybe he could close the door for me. So, but that this is statistically true. Conservative women tend not to vote. So when they tend not to vote, somebody else comes in and says, oh, there's a whole, first off, they say, low voter turnout, we can get our agenda across. That's one thing that happens when we decide not to vote. The second thing is that's a whole untapped group that maybe we can convince by, doing charity work that we're actually really good people and really moral people and they should join us because they don't understand the reasons why we need to be involved.
Okay. Can I back
Yes.
up
Yes.
front to your one comment?
Yes.
You said that, the step down moral something subjectivism, and your example was you say something and you're like, oh, that really hurts my feelings that you believe that. And I think if we had, or we role played, or we knew a response to that, that we could start modeling a higher way of, you know, and not the higher way, but to bring it the step up to what Ashley, all those steps you were talking about. And I want to print out of that, Ashley. Thank you. That was a really great way to understand, how it
Friend,
isn't
that's a
just,
sermon. That's a Vadi Bakum sermon. I've listened to it a million times. It's amazing.
yeah,
It's on my heart.
I would love to see it because
Mhm.
that's, seeing the slope and understanding that, and understanding how to have those conversations at each level would be so beneficial because it's not one or the other. Um, it's not like, oh, you guys are more relativism or you believe in God. It's like, oh no, see, we're right here. We're right here with you. We believe in God, but don't say anything that hurts my feelings. And so if we knew how to have those conversations with people and say, oh, I believe that we have this divinely given choice of freedom of agency and freedom of speech and it's not a painful thing to have differences and to be different and to have unique purposes and unique viewpoints, and that our ability to share them and to work together is part of our becoming of one heart. And if we can't even disclose who we are, how can we become of one heart? um and hold that person as they are, and yourself as they are, with love. um so I think understanding what those conversations look like at each stage and knowing how we can counter it, because I don't know that everyone's aware of where they are on that slope and how to identify it and what to say to change it. They'll just think, like Carrie said, um, oh, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't talk about this. And that's why women aren't involved in politics. So that's like the essence of why we're not involved, because we don't know how to, our whole, many women just, they want to bond with each other and find similarities and they don't want to do those differences. And so to say, hey, differences can be
can be a connecting point, instead of a battlefront, which is, where it's sadly I've seen Carrie being hammered, which is so distasteful. And I'm sorry about that. It makes me really sad. But it also was like, how do you convince them that what they're doing is,
We'll
what
get
do you
there.
say?
Yeah, we'll get there. I mean, I think the thing is that what I've always believed is that the cream has to rise to the top. So, that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt or anything else. But in the end, the good ideas, the reason, the modeling consistently good behavior. I've told you that story. I've told you about the boy who wouldn't sign my yearbook. And the more and more that you prove that, I'm better than what you think I am,
Mhm.
then eventually that changes. I just want to go, okay, so here we go. So women especially don't like politics because they consider it ugly, right? Now, I love this definition. This is from Kimberly's book. Oh, shoot, sorry. And I can't see it, so somebody else has to read it. But this is from Kimberly's book. This
I'll
is
read it.
terrible. It's the one about the women. Women are the last best hope, or something like that. Mothers are the last best hope. So
A
that does not mean we're
politician.
feminist. Go
Okay.
ahead.
A politician is a person who lusts for power, is obsessed with self importance, and motivated by greed. Politicians have been groomed in politics. They learn the artful craftiness of deceit, the clever tactics of scheming to get gain and win votes, and the cunning methods of distraction, distortion, denial, and blame shifting. Politicians will say and do whatever it takes to keep and add to their power. They are motivated by self preservation and personal gain and put their own interests above the people they serve. Politicians will vote for anything they feel benefits them, regardless of how their constituents feel or whether or not it is in the best interest of the country. Politicians are self serving individuals who hold little regard for God or country and feel no loyalty or affection for the people they serve. And hallelujah, we see this so much now.
Louis is not the right word, but yes. we, I mean, I feel like when I was reading that, so many faces came to mind, right? And this is why people are like, I don't want anything to do with that. When we are not active, when we are not seeking out statesmen, this is what we get. And this is where we are. We get this. Like, I had such a hard time. I had one person I could vote for, and she's going to watch this tomorrow. So, hi. But I had one person I could vote for. Um, Everybody else, I felt sick to my stomach at the idea of voting for them. I felt like I was giving something away that by force. And that was really,
Yeah,
really
your
hard.
voice. That's
Yeah.
your voice. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go with the definition of a statesman.
Okay, a statesman is a person of integrity and high moral character who possesses a strong desire to serve others, recognizes his or her imperfections, and strives to overcome them to be the best person he or she can be. Statesmen have been trained in humanity. They learn the moral code of right and wrong, the positive attributes of honesty, humility, patriotism, accepting responsibility, and the selfless standard of love thy neighbor, the golden rule, and country before self. Statesmen are people of faith who believe in a supreme being and a future state of rewards and punishments. They research issues carefully and do their best to vote in the best interest of the republic and the people they represent, even if it means losing votes. Statesmen cherish freedom and liberty, have a deep affection and concern for those they serve, and feel a profound sense of duty and loyalty to their country. They live their faith, reverence God, and respect the faith of others.
So this one really got me because it's very easy to see the politician, but it's not always to see who's not a statesman, because we might think that, well, the person says all the same things we say, but if the actions underneath it, if they refuse to see their own imperfections, if they have no humility, and if they are, because both sides, and I don't mean left and right, I mean statesman versus politician, right? So both sides can put their own self-interest. You can be a statesman and still say, I want the glory. I think that is possible. I think you can be a lot of these really good things and still be all about the glory. So to me, the thing that stood out to me the most was humility. And we don't have a whole lot, even love him or hate him, even the president, he's not the most humble of people, and doesn't mean not a good person. But when I'm looking at for statesmen, I want humility. And I will say one person that I can think of, um, Representative General Burton. He is super accomplished. He's a general like 3 times over. And he treats every single person with kindness and actual dignity, not manufactured dignity. And I just think, you know, um, I think that Senator Lee has been that way in some circumstances, but Representative General Burton is just the kind of person who you wouldn't even know who he was unless, if you didn't see him in all of his decorations, because he's, I think, a true statesman. Um, and I wish we had more of that. And a big way that we have more of that is by committing to be involved, committing to fight on those front lines, but also committing to teach our children to be part of those. How do we teach our children to be statesmen? How do we teach them that that's even a thing? Because if they're watching politics right now, holy cow, that's not the message they're getting. So there you go. We start with ourselves and the way that we raise our children. How can we raise our children to be statesmen?
I mean, I love what Brooke was saying earlier, where she's taken some opportunities to take her kids or any youth that she has leadership over, to these different, places where they can learn about what people have given up for our country.
And Brooke, you didn't really go to Valley Forge. You acted it out, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, so that they would remember, like kids learn by doing stuff. And so if they're wrapping their feet, they're going to know that they didn't have shoes. They ate their shoes because they were starving. And if they are trying to build a shelter and they couldn't, they're going to be like, how could these people have done this? And even the corn cakes we were making, we didn't have a recipe because Polly Cooper came and taught them. I'm like, I don't know. Let's just see what we could make with this, because those soldiers didn't know how to cook. And the Oneida woman showed up and said, you have to put in dried fruits and seeds so you have nutrition in here. And
Wow.
it's like they're trying to figure it out on their own. And the sacrifice, I mean, it's just like, it's mind blowing that we are not as connected to the beauty of our culture that we should be. That I don't know these these beautiful stories, that I'm so dumb to this, and I hate it. I just bought a book from PragerU, which has an essay of 2 to 3 pages on every U.S. president, and I'm asking my husband, like, I didn't know about this guy. I didn't even know his
Right.
name. I didn't even know that he did this, and I just can't believe, like, we have all of these great resources, and instead I'm watching cat videos and baby videos, when I want to
Yes.
recharge. But when I do it for this education, for this learning, it's like my heart catches on fire. It's not just that my brain gets a timeout, it's my heart starts to beat again, and we're being numbed into
Yes.
this little thing when you just pick up a book and you're like, whoa, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
So I
I just
just,
want to say real quick, like I think I feel so strongly that we need, I mean, because they don't teach these stories. And so many of us, even if we did hear them, you know, it's easy to forget if if you're not constantly reminding yourself. I mean, we learn by repetition, right? So I think that we should share these stories with our children because, like Brooke said, like when you hear these stories, you cannot help it. It lights a fire in your heart and soul because it's like the best examples of mankind, our founding fathers, the things that they did, the things that they went through are truly incredible. And I think that like fire for liberty is like down in our very like spiritual DNA. We have it. And so, because, you know, God wants us to be free. So if we just fan that flame for our kids, you know, they'll get it. And then it's up to them to fan that, you know, in their own heart and soul as they're adults, just like it's ours, and to pass it on.
Well, we don't even know that we're starving. That's the crazy
Yes.
part of it.
Yeah.
It's like we think that we're well fed and that we're having a great life. And truly, our hearts are starving and our souls are starving and our
Yes.
children are starving. And it's like, how else can you explain the mental health crisis?
Right.
It's bread and circus. It's bread and circus. We are given enough to stay content and to stay society, I would say, to stay dependent. We're dependent on our comfort. We're not dependent on, you know, we're not in line in the food banks or getting SNAP benefits, but we're dependent on our comfort. This morning, a lot of social media was down. It was noticeable. Wait, what? This is not the way I start my morning. And we're dependent on these things. And what they do is they numb us. Even though I could say, I think I use social media for good reasons, for good purposes, it's not the same as when I'm specifically studying. When I'm specifically studying, I'm being fulfilled. Um, so I put up this picture of the Trojan horse because we oftentimes think that we've got the best ideas, that we already know them, right? And so we cannot fight principle with policy. We need to fight policy with, and that does say principle, but again, I can't see it because of my whole thing. We need to fight policy with principle. So what happens is we go in and we think, oh, we've got these great ideas and we're going to be able to stop X. So say something like civics. We go in trusting that civics is a good thing. But if we don't know, if we aren't educated enough to understand that everything's a Trojan horse, I often say that it's like a hydra. We're fighting a hydra of all of these things, and there's one way or another to manipulate constantly. So we have to know this is the principle that we're trying to get out of our schools. Okay. Not principle, even though that sounds like when I say schools, but the principle is we don't want our kids to be racially or genderly divided. We want our kids to be unified. That's the principle. The principle is that we believe that we should all be together. We believe that we don't believe that diversity is our strength. We believe unity is our strength. That's the principle we're fighting towards. Then we can fight against the policy, but we have to be rooted in what it is that we believe. Because if we're not, we're like shifting sand. Does that make sense? Y'all look a little bit like it doesn't make sense, but that's the
I
way
didn't
that
hear you. If not, we're like what?
shifting sand. We're
Oh,
easily, right? We're easily able to just be to fall. If we don't have something strong and somebody says, I don't like it that you said that, that hurts my feelings. I don't think you're being inclusive. I don't think whatever else. If you're not like, no, I am inclusive. I just know what that definition means to you. And that's very different than saying, oh, please, I'm so sorry that I hurt your feelings. You have to be strong and you have to know what it is that you're standing for. And oftentimes we don't know what we're standing for, and we especially don't know what we're standing against. We don't know the nuances of all of that.
I don't know. I don't.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to think of why people back down. And I don't know that it's because they don't understand the principle.
I think it's because they're scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're
Because I've had
scared
them
and
say to me,
they
you
start
don't
feel
want to
guilty.
teach, you don't want us to teach your kids kindness. That's literally the passive aggressive that I was met with. So somehow I don't want my kids to learn kindness, but that wasn't the issue. It was the fact that we understand kindness in two different definitions, because I don't think it's
Yes.
kind to lie
Yeah.
to someone
Yeah.
when they're out of line, or when I see something that is wrong. And so I
Right.
think that that's why people back
Yeah.
up, because it's uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. Nobody wants to be slapped in the face with passive aggressive comments that are coming as an attack. But my bigger thing is, how do we, because the Trojan horse is already here. So how do you fight the Trojan horse that's already within us? And I think that has to be based on Christ-like principles, because God's already laid out what he expects from us. And so
Right,
we have to know what those principles are.
Well,
right.
I think Donna, that you actually identified it. And I forget what you said, but it was something like, that's not kindness, it's truth. Like they're saying, when Charlie Kirk was talking with some guy, he's like, love will define love, kindness will define kindness. Well, I want truth. And they pretend to be talking about the same topic. And so people get confused. It's when I went to have that discussion with the ALA member and the author Shannon Hales, and I came away so disoriented. And I was like, what just happened? Am I a
But
bad
that's the
person?
key. The key is they're not confused. They know that they've taken the language and that they have twisted it to mean something different. That's
Yeah.
what I mean by understanding and fighting that policy with principle. You have to understand that when they say we want civics, they mean we want your kids to be activists shouting in the streets and maybe looting.
Yeah.
You have to understand that that's the end game here. And your principle has to be, I'm never going to allow that to happen. That
Well,
has to be where you're standing.
so
And you have to go ahead.
but the thing is it's so disorienting to
Yes.
not understand the language. And so
Yes.
it's not a matter of fighting the principle. I mean, we understand the principle, we want to fight for it, whatever. But when you're thrown off because the language appears to be this and you're just disoriented, you can't strike back. So you kind of have to know the approach and how they've switched the language on us. And we have to say, well, actually, kindness is this. You define this. And that's what Charlie Kirk did such a good job is he set the definitions up from the beginning. He's like, wait, what do you mean by kindness?
Right.
Wait, what about
We have
this?
to define the term. He always would say that we have to define the term.
Yeah.
That's a huge reason why we have Moms for America. So that people know, we have 3 platforms, and one of them is to empower parents. We empower parents by letting them know how does courage is a habit. Alvin Louis puts it really well. He says we are looking at the same dictionary but not the same glossary, or something along those lines. Like we think we're looking at the same things. We're reading the same words, but they don't have the same definition.
Yeah.
And that's intentional, because then that leaves you disoriented, and then they can say, "Gotcha." And that is intentional, and we have to be able to look and to really arm ourselves to understand that is what's going on here. It is not a it is not a, oh, we just misunderstood. That's not what's going on. The same thing with, oh, you hurt my feelings. No, no, I'm so sorry, but I can't help that you as a grown woman get your feelings hurt. I get my feelings hurt too. The way it goes.
Well, one of the things I noticed with the Charlie Kirk interviews when he asked people to define the definitions is that as they defined it, they began to see that it didn't make sense, that it couldn't make sense. And
Yes.
so it's another way of not just trying to protect our ideals or to stand for principles, but it's another way to win hearts, is to strip down the false definitions, the false ideas, and allow them to do it too. So it's not really a defense or an attack, but it's an opening for truth to shine through, you know?
Yeah. So this is just a quick poster from Thomas Jefferson, and it just says, adore God, reverence and cherish your parents, love your neighbor as yourself and your country more than yourself. Be just, be true, murmur not at the ways of the providence. So shall the life unto which you have entered be the portal of portal to one of eternal and ineffable bliss. And if we lived that way, we wouldn't really need politics. But we don't. As a society, we don't live very much that way. So because we don't live that way, and because that's by design, we are being designed to fail. We're being designed to fall apart. So that's where this picture, this divided we fall. Whatever you think, if you think that it's about race and you think that it's about gender, you think that it's all of those things, understand that what it is about is those who are either anti-God or believe they are God, and those who follow God. That's the division here. Ultimately, the division. So that's how come a lot of like SEL type stuff is about becoming kind of making God this neutral, whatever you feel, versus I am the way, the truth, and the life. That's ultimately the divided that we fall. And that's how we lose our country, when we do not believe that God, who we are, our country is founded on. When we do not believe that a belief in God, a belief that we have our inalienable rights given to us by God, that's when we fall. Now, here's some reasons why this stuff matters. Anybody want to read this one? Kind of dark, but I didn't put a picture for a reason.
I'll read it.
Go ahead.
The last society to be as highly trained and poorly educated as the U.S. today was Germany.
Yeah. Okay, next one.
They were not learned enough in morals to refuse to torture their own countrymen.
True. This is a big part of my reason.
Wait, I need the source. Who's the source? Who said this?
Oh, don't make me do that. You have to go back and find the lesson, because I was typing as I was listening.
Is it the Valor of Virtue, from the Valor of Virtue
yes,
lesson?
It is.
Oh, okay,
yes,
thank you.
Yep, it's from the Value of Virtue lesson. So, but I think that, I mean, the reason that I could see it without needing that source is we are there. We've had somebody be assassinated and people won't say their name. I mean, the billboard, I can't get out of my head the billboards that are designed to dehumanize a large group of Utahns. The one that says, exposing the MAGA stain. So what is education if it is not to teach us what is good? Ideal, it should say ideal and right. Okay. Here's the tricky thing though. Authoritarianism can come from either side. Who decides what's good, ideal, and right? Where do we figure that out, and how do we figure that out in a secular world? What is good, ideal, and right?
Why did you say in a secular world?
Because because many of our kids go to public schools.
Well, maybe that's why we don't do public school.
Well, but some people don't. They don't have. Some people do not have that option. That's a fact. You know.
Well, then we teach them at home. But you can't.
Right?
You can't do it in a secular world.
I wanted to say, like, something somebody said at that conference last night is, or not last night, last weekend, was that individually for us, yes, that is the answer. For Brooke, that is the answer. For Ashley. But as a society, like in Utah, 90% of our children go to public school. So it
Mine
would
do
be,
too.
yeah, so it would be
Same.
great. It would be great if we could get parents to do this, but that's why I think we have to fight in the education space, because this is how most of our, and we have to, I feel like, care about, you know, the rising generation. So that's why we empower parents, so that we're not the only ones fighting this massive education,
Yeah.
machine.
It's a process. It is a slow downward spiral, and it's happened to Idaho, it's happened to Oklahoma, it's happened to Illinois, it's happening, they're trying in Florida. It depends on your state. And I'm gonna say something that might be controversial, but I feel like with Utah, unfortunately, with the polygamists, that's going to be a huge thing hanging over us because they're homeschoolers, the majority of them. So even though 99% of us amazing homeschoolers are doing a great job and we're thriving, if they want to go and do home inspections, or that situation that happened with the milk, that traffic accident last month, that was weird. They were all related, the girls, that was like a trafficking thing. Well, it takes a while to come out, but those are the polygamists that were doing that, and they're homeschool kids. They're not in school. They're 14-year-olds driving big rig trucks. So I'm saying, unfortunately, we can do the best that we can, but having fought in California and have friends everywhere, that's the part that keeps me up at night. The Ruby Frankie stuff. So we know, as homeschoolers, like, we know the line stops there at my front door. However, we absolutely have to have just parents in schools. It's kind of like a process. Like, when the parents are not like able to be visitors and visit their kids' schools and able to do certain things, that is like a slow telltale. We have PTA now that are putting on all these scholastic book fairs. They don't realize how bad the books are. Like, so all those little things. So the parents should
That's
be
the issue.
involved, but they
That's the
should be
issue.
involved. Yeah, but they
What
don't
is
know.
education? But what is
Yeah.
education? So we have to decide who's telling us what's right, because look at this. People
Hmm.
feel that this is kindness, that this is empowerment. That's the reality that we live in. We live in a reality where, supporting queer youth for educators is a part of goodness to these people. And remember, something that we learned again in Chicago, we got to listen to Catherine Burblesink, and it was amazing. And one of the things that she said that really hit was, she said, these people are normal. She said they have 2 dogs and they have 3 children and they're just normal people. You are not normal. And that's the reality, is that we're not. We obsess over these things because we understand that this isn't goodness. Okay. It is not good to use our kids as protesters. It is not good to have them so apathetic that they don't think twice about punching someone in the face because they just simply don't agree with them. So when we're defining what good is, like, we're choosing the wrong people to define what good is. We just let an entire school district go out of our own apathy because we don't vote, because politics are messy. We let an entire school district go to the people who believe this. That's what we did as a society, not us. And yes, we are dumbing down our society, and we're recreating new morals. Again, the people who believe this are telling our children how to be moral.
I think part of our push needs to be in, what do the numbers say? Because if you look at the State Board of Education's numbers as far as what our proficiency is, we're not
Oh,
even
it's down.
at like 50% across the board in
Mm-mm.
in reading and math and science. So while they're pushing all of reading, math, and science, everything's all wrapped up together, but it's wrapped up in these social programs. That's where our push needs to be.
Yes.
Mm.
Well, the first push has to be to wake people up. The first push has to be to realize that the more we are not fit to be citizens, and that's what library means. Library literally means the fitness of the individual to act as a citizen. We are not there. We, our little group, we're trying to get there. But in terms of what the founding fathers and their families were, we are so far away from that. We are so far away from that because those people, they pledged their lives, their fortunes, their sacred honors. And as I'm listening to these stories, like at one point, I mean, there were, I think, 36 of these men who signed the Declaration of Independence, Constitution. Oops, okay. They signed, but 36 of these men signed this, right? And they, some of them lost literally everything.
Mhm.
Some of them, like I think three of them were actually tortured and then killed. They lost their fortunes, and we don't even take the time to be informed. So I thought that this was interesting. The public virtue is voluntarily sacrificing personal benefits for the good of society. If we don't see people doing that, if we see people saying, oh, I care all about these social initiatives, I want everybody to be equitable, but yet they're bringing in the bucks to push equity, they don't really believe in that. And equity in itself is not a virtue. I mean, from my point of view, I would not call that a virtue. Equity, equal outcomes for all, not a great idea. Unless you're, a 12-year-old and you think that the world is sunshine and rainbows. So, but public virtue, voluntarily sacrificing personal benefits for the good of society. I'm going to address something because some of you have seen what's been going on with me. We are, I hope you can't hear my dogs. We are, some, we've done some of the best work as an organization on pushing back against ethnic studies. Okay. Ethnic studies would benefit me greatly if I wanted to be that person. I could be the spokesperson for all of the whateverness I deserve because, ooh, hard life. I could jump on that thing because it would benefit me. I'm not interested in that because it's the wrong thing. So when you think about your why, when you think about what it is and what you're trying to be, you have to do the right thing even when it doesn't benefit you. And I promise you, for years, people have said, oh, Carrie, if you would just join our side, you could do so much good work. But I don't consider that work good. I consider it evil to look at anybody and say, you owe me by your sheer existence. I think that that's a terrible thing to tell anyone, whether they be 70-year-old politicians or whether they be 7-year-old children.
So what
And
are
I
the
think,
solutions?
well, I think this is
I'm
the same
asking.
thing that
Yeah,
the founding fathers did. They said,
right.
take all my wealth. And they literally meant it.
Mhm.
So one of them was extremely wealthy. He was self-made, extremely wealthy, and he basically funded the revolution until there was nothing left for him to give. And he gave it anyways. Another man was at a party. This was Morris, I believe. He was at a party and they would not shoot his house. And one of the British had occupied his home, and they're like, we're not going to shoot your house. And he took one of their guns and leveled it to the ground because there was something more important. And so the solution is for it to be more important than yourself. That is the solution. If we're going to preserve anything, then our mission has to be bigger than ourselves. It has to be bigger than our egos. Has to be bigger than our pride, bigger. Our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor. 56 men. 56 men did that. And they meant it. So here's the thing. They hoped above hope that we would learn. Remember, what was the thing that Benjamin Franklin told that lady? A republic, madam, if you can keep it.
Yeah.
If you can keep it. He knew back then. Good luck. They hoped and they thought if we teach our offspring and they teach theirs, unfortunately we got too comfortable. And weak men have created hard times. And weak women. We have created very hard times. So here's a quote from Frederick Douglass. There's one that's an actual quote. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. So one of our solutions is to build those strong children. And I think personally, I've messed up in some of those areas. I'm watching a senior going, what's next? Because we got groomed into comfort. So how do I change that? How do I change that at this late in the game? And how do I model that for other people when I feel already like I didn't do that right?
Oh, we all survived it, public school, whatever it was. And it, honestly, here's the thing. I'll tell you what homeschool kids lack at times is resilience. What public school does give you is a resilience where like you can wait longer, sacrifice for the group because it's more collective. So there are good
Interesting.
things
Okay.
to it in a way, and there are bad things. Whereas our kids are comfortable, they're at home, they can go potty when they want, they can have 100 snacks a day for the most part. So if a lot of parents are homeschooling, they're not doing it right themselves because their kids aren't getting that adversity and their kids aren't getting different points of view and stuff. So I'm not professing like everything is perfect. It's actually a really big task and it's a lot of ownership that like every parent has, but it's just I don't shut it off in a way,
Right.
But it's different for everybody. I mean, you're
Yeah.
still like no one, if anyone was to ever tell you, well, you have 18 years to teach them everything you want. Nobody does that. We are all struggling. Like, you're like, if there's a finish line, and now I'm just like, well, you're never moving out. That's just what's happening.
Well, I don't think any of us can do this perfectly, and I think
No,
that
it
is
does
a good
take a village,
takeaway.
though. It also takes a village, though. But you just have to pick. You can pick your village, and
And let's make sure it's not Hillary Clinton's village.
no, church. I mean, church
So
helps. Your group helps. Your people help. Your family help. But it's
so
really important.
here's the big one, and that is, can you take the risk when you realize what people have given for you? And this is really, it's not really for the people on this call. This is for anybody who's listening. Can you take that risk? I can't tell you how many people have called me and said, I've faced this problem. This has happened. Can you help me with this? Can you fix this problem for me?
Yeah.
And when I
Yeah.
say no, you have to make the call. You have to call the school board. Oh, but I can't because, I mean, I go to church with these people. Oh, but I can't because I have this business and, oh, if I got involved, this could really hurt my business. These are children though.
Let me, sorry, I know
No, you're
we're
fine.
like, we're so long, but
Yeah. No.
this is a
Sorry.
quote by Nelson Mandela. It's just the end of one of my favorite quotes. I wrote it in the front page of my, like, there's a blank page in front of the scriptures. So, he says, where is this? Okay. As we let our own light shine, we consciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fears, our presence automatically liberates others. If we were all together all the time, nobody could tell us anything. You know
That's
what I mean?
right.
We are
Yeah.
so strong together.
Encouragement. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think the purpose of this group, and I know when I'm not with you guys, I feel you with me because I know that we're in this fight together.
I
Yeah.
know that I can text all of you at any time and you're going to respond. So because I met you guys and you are in the fight, it gave me more courage to fight. And I think that if we continue to fight, we're going to give others the strength. We're going to help them find the strength to do it.
I
Yeah.
know.
So I just wanted to wrap up
is-
with this. This is what, go ahead. What are you going to say?
I was going to say the problem is we have families we love and businesses we run and things we
Yes.
do and people we teach, and we're not like childless, angry. Like we don't have all day to protest. Like that's the problem, is that we're loving our families and doing so many things and contributing, but like
Right.
we just this is the time we have, right? Putting kids to
Right.
bed and doing. So I feel like that's the thing. So I don't think so many people, like everybody, if you talk to anyone, any of your neighbors, I love the work that you do. It's so good that you do that. I'm so glad you do that.
Oh my
I'm
gosh, they
so
all
glad
say
you're
that,
involved.
yes.
That's all
This
you
is the thing.
hear.
The
That's
real thing
all
is like
you
this.
hear.
It's more than that. It's the push. It's the
Mm,
push with the hand. I love the
totally.
work that you do.
Good for you.
Dance move of like, stay away. But yes. But I wanted to hit these things because this is what we've done in our inaugural year. So in
Right.
terms of, I said earlier, cream rises to the top. We've got to do these things. The very first thing is we were pivotal in halting ethnic studies. And if you haven't seen ethnic studies curriculum, I recommend that you go to parentsdefendinged.com and take a look at what that is. It is
Brooke, you live in
extremely
the book.
divisive. Yes, we did, yes, conducted a comprehensive audit of the state and reviewed the findings from the school library audit. This is Brooke, our civics engagement person. This is what she does. And
Amazing.
within the first couple of days in the first couple of schools, they found so much that they were like, if we didn't put a limit, we'd never have finished this. I mean, it's that bad. And this is really egregious stuff that you can find on our government page. Maybe somebody can put the link in. We've assisted in starting turning points in our schools. And I'm seeing these little lines here. So I just want to explain this last one.
Takes time.
Initiated the discussion on the dangers of restorative justice. There's no part of me that supports restorative justice because I understand what it is. So when I say we initiated the discussion, I mean, we went to the Capitol, had a meeting with representatives and explained to them. We had my friend who is a psychologist come in and talk to address these people and say, this is the problem with restorative justice. And the thing that we do well is that we don't tear people down in the process. We look at the policy instead of destroying a person. And we do that over and over and over again. And even if it's somebody, maybe we're talking to somebody that we don't love. Maybe we're talking to a politician because that's what we've got a whole lot of. We still are building that relationship. And more than that, we're modeling expertise for them. And that's the important work that we would love to have you join us with. So this is what I always say, the mission is bigger. We do this for our kids. We do this because I've heard, I mean, I started this because I heard kids say, when are the adults going to stand up for us? And then my last slide, this is it. A society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they shall never sit in. When you look at the world and think, I'm doing this for other people, this is no longer about me. It is about how I can help other people. Then you find the drive and the reason, and quite frankly, become unstoppable. And ladies, that's what we've accomplished in our first year. And I know we went over by half an hour. I'm so sorry. Normally I'm good at being right there at an hour, but I kind of knew that this one would be longer. I just really appreciate you for being here. And if you're interested in more of our work, thing we're going to do in the very near future is December 9th, we're going to Christmas caroling, and that's for moms, daughters, and grandmas. So if you'd like to join us, we're going to do that, I believe, in Orem, but I'll put out the invitation tomorrow. And thank you so much. I'm not sure. Is it just you and me now? Are we the only two left?
No, there's still people
Okay.
here. But this conversation just edified my soul. I just want you guys to know I'm so grateful for everyone who came and just allowed us to talk with you. It's therapeutic for me.
Yeah. Yeah, we so appreciate it. I am trying to figure out. There we go. Stop share. Okay. We we so appreciate those of you who've stayed, those of you who got on here, and you know, help us grow, because I believe that it's going to be a heart-led mission that's going to change and improve Utah for the better. So, alrighty.
Thanks, ladies.
Thanks, you guys.
Good night.
Bye. We'll be back in January.